The various regions of Western Australia are determined by a number of systems that divide Western Australia into distinct geographic regions for a variety of purposes. The most common system is the WA government division of the state into regions for economic development purposes, of which there are 9 defined regions. However, there are a number of other systems, including those made for purposes of land management, information gathering, and election for political office. The various different systems were defined for different purposes, and give specific boundaries, but although many of the different systems' regions have similar names, they have different boundaries. The names and boundaries of regions can and do vary between systems. The Regional Development Commissions Act regions. The Western Australian system of regions defined by the Government of Western Australia for purposes of economic development administration, which excludes the Perth metropolitan area, is a series of 9 regions. These 9 regions were established by the Regional Development Commissions Act 1993, which defined their extents and established regional development commissions to promote their economic development. In defining the regions, an attempt was made to capture distinct socio-economic communities. For example, the Goldfields Esperance region of Western Australia has an economy based heavily on mining, whereas the Wheatbelt region is economically dependent on agriculture. The 9 defined regions are Gascoyne, Goldfields Esperance, Great Southern, Kimberley, Midwest, Peel, Pilbara, Southwest, Wheatbelt. Bureau of Meteorology regions. The same region names as those used by the Regional Development Commissions Act are incorporated into the system used by BOM, which uses 14 regions, so the boundaries of the 2 systems do not coincide. In some of the regions, the BOM designates the forecast area regions with a finer level of detail using points of the compass. Regions numbered 8 to 14 are usually known as forecast areas in the Southwest Land Division. Coastal zones for sea forecasts are dealt with in coastal regions of Western Australia. Political regions. Under Australia's 3-tiered system of government, Western Australia has 4 political regional schemes. State government departmental regions. Many government departments maintain systems of regional and district breakdowns of the state for their own internal purposes. Department of Education, Goldfields, Kimberley, Midwest, North Metro, Pilbara, South Metro, Southwest, Wheatbelt. Department of Agriculture and Food, Northern Agricultural Region, Rangelands Region, Southern Agricultural Region, Central Agricultural Region, Southwest Agricultural, Main Roads Western Australia, Kimberley, Pilbara, Gascoyne, Midwest, Goldfields Esperance, Wheatbelt North, Metropolitan, Wheatbelt South, Great Southern, Southwest, Department of Water, Kimberley, Pilbara, Midwest Gascoyne, Goldfields, Swanhaven, Kinana Peel, Southwest, South Coast, Department of Fisheries. Fisheries tends to separate the state into 4 main regions for the purpose of regulating recreational fishing: North Coast, Pilbara Kimberley, Gascoyne Coast, West Coast, South Coast. Department of Mines and Petroleum. The department produces statistical data based on the Regional Development Commissions Act regionalization schema. Since the creation of the Department of Industry and Resources, some rationalization of mines administration has occurred, however the mineral fields and boundaries remain the same as when established. Department of Planning/Western Australian Planning Commission. There are 3 regions with regional planning schemes, covering only a small part of the state: Metropolitan Region Scheme, Peel Region Scheme, Greater Bunbury Region Scheme, Department of Fire and Emergency Services, Kimberley, Pilbara, Midwest Gascoyne, Goldfields, Great Southern, Kinana Peel, Southwest, Lower Southwest, Metropolitan. Natural and land management. There are a number of regionalizations that purport or attempt to provide a regionalization based on natural features. The best known of these are the interim biogeographic regionalisation for Australia regions, and the World Wildlife Fund's ecoregions in Australia, and the natural regions of John Stanley Beard, all of which are based on biogeography. Other natural regionalizations included the drainage basins and catchments of river systems, and highly specialized regionalizations dealing with such matters as geology and soil systems. Administrative regionalizations include land care districts and the Department of Agriculture's land use zones. However, the Department of Agriculture publications, technical bulletins, usually titled an Inventory and Condition Report Survey of a particular region, are very specifically focused upon land systems that are based on natural features. Land tenure. Western Australia is divided into approximately 90 land districts for cadastral purposes. There are 5 land divisions in Western Australia, as specified in Schedule 1 of the Land Administration Act 1997. Eastern Land Division, Yukala Land Division, Kimberley Land Division, Northwest Land Division, Southwest Land Division. Wine regions. Australia Euro unregistered trademark's big estate extends the western third of the continent, although the winemaking regions are almost entirely situated in the southwestern tip of the state. It has 9 regions, and 5 nominated sub-regions for wine under the geographical indications legislation as determined by the Australian Wine and Brandy Corporation. Wine regions include, Greater Perth, Perth Hills, Peel, Swan District. Southwestern Australia, Blackwood Valley, Geography, Great Southern, Albany, Denmark, Franklin River, Mount Barker, Porungarup. Manjimup, Margaret River, Pemberton. Coastal regions. Western Australia has the longest coastline of any state in Australia, at 10,194 kilometres. The regions can be determined by the underlying geology, and in the case of the Bureau of Meteorology, features such as points and capes are useful indicators of coastal water forecasts. Landgate publishes touring maps that include coastal zones including, Batavia Coast, Gascoyne Coast, Coral Coast, Turquoise Coast north of Sunset Coast and south of Batavia Coast, Sunset Coast. Census and Australian Bureau of Statistics. For the purposes of statistical geography, the Australian Bureau of Statistics uses the Australian Standard Geographical Classification, a hierarchical regionalisation that divides Western Australia into statistical divisions, then statistical subdivisions, statistical local areas, and finally, census collection districts. Statistical divisions include, SD 505, Perth, SD 510, Southwest, SD 515, Lower Great Southern, SD 520, Upper Great Southern, SD 525, Midlands, SD 530, Southeastern, SD 535, Central, SD 540, Pilbara, SD 545, Kimberley. The ABS produces regional profiles for the 9 ABS statistical divisions, and the 10 Development Commission regions. Cross-regional terminology. In some cases, regions have been grouped into larger areas. To describe a larger area in a single term, remote Western Australia Euro also synonymous with outback Western Australia Euro is determined by the distance and separation from the more heavily populated southwest region surrounding Perth and its adjacent hinterland, and the subsequent scattered and low-density populated areas towards the central east of Western Australia. Northwest Australia similarly crosses the usual regional definitions to designate an area. Southwest Australia may also ignore usual regional definitions. Willabra Euro, a term with multiple meanings. A Euro covers between southeast Western Australia and far west South Australia. See also, List of regions of Australia, Geography of Western Australia, Australian regional rivalries. References. External links, Fisheries, Recreational fishing regions. Further reading, Regions Western Australia. Perth, WA Department of Commerce and Trade. Issue 1 Issue 11, Regional Futures, Challenges and Opportunities for Western Australia's Regions, a discussion paper prepared by the Regional Development Council and the Department of Commerce and Trade. Perth, WA The Council, Reverend June 1996. Western Australia, a statistical snapshot of the regions prepared by the Department of Commerce and Trade for the Regional Development Council. Perth, The Department, 1995. Western Australia Tomorrow, Population Projections for the Statistical Divisions, Planning Regions and Local Government Areas of Western Australia. Perth, WA Western Australian Planning Commission, 2000. Population Report. Number 4. ISBN 0-7309-9222-5. Maps, Street Smart Traveller's Atlas of Western Australia, Department of Land Information and West Australian Newspapers, 9th ed. ISBN 1-921048-13-1, Quality Publishing Australia. 2007, Roads and Tracks Western Australia, Campsites Directory, Roads and Tracks, all in one Jolimont, WA, Quality Publishing Australia, 5th ed. ISBN 1-876723-35-1, UBD Western Australia Country Road Atlas Macquarie Park, NSW UBD, a division of Universal Publishers, 11th ed. ISBN 0-7319-1587-9.